Okay, so I just wanted to start by reading a short introduction to Democracia, if I can find it here. So, Democracia, based in Madrid, Spain, is an artistic collective comprised of Iván López and Pablo España. Formed in 2006, their collaboration has sought to centre artistic production on collectivity, discourse, dissensus, and conflict. Since its inception, Democracia has created ambitious and provocative social interventions in the mould of the Situationist International, reviving, refiguring, and repurposing the radical methodologies of one of the most influential artistic and philosophical movements. Their work is designed to create situations unexpressed but present in social dynamics. These actions reveal unspoken narratives beneath the thinnest veneers, giving voices to oppressed people and unmasking the corrupt intentions of the state. They provide a meaningful critique of contemporary political visual culture in the use of agitprop aesthetics that are pressed expertly through the glossy matrix of the late capitalist communications apparatus. So, I've got a little intro there. So I wanted to start the talk today by asking about the origins of Democracia. So you were formed in 2006, and I wanted to ask what brought about your desire to collaborate in such a way, and what was it about this moment that made you think it was time to make this kind of work?
You mean in general,
generally in 2006, what was that moment?
Well, we started to work together far before, because we met in the university and we were friends, and at some point we started to do things. So, and that was 1989. Mm-hmm. At that moment, we just set a group, and we wanted to be open to as much people as we could, and we were firstly 4, then 3, and in 2006 we just remained 2 of us. Mm-hmm. so that's to say that collaboration is kind of a process that can be very rich, but it's a difficult, and it's always developing. So, but we're still doing it because we do believe that the results, what we can get within the frame of a group, is much more interesting than as individuals.
So that you say that your practice is a node for further collaborations with the group. It seems that this very architecture of working as a group, that it's embodying some of the key tenets and principles of anarchism, which is a big ideological drive behind the work you do. This is the prefigurative politics that is a significant part of the activity of the anarchist movement. Voluntary associations, collective decision-making, interventions that are really acts of civil disobedience. Through the use of the name Democracia, it's a critique of our experience of democracy, but the collaboration and the way that you involve other groups in the work feels like a truly democratic way of working. How important is this particular aspect of working, and what does the collectivity bring to the work?
I think it's essential. I mean, it's essential. We when we just begin, I mean, we could talk about a hardcore, which is would be Pablo and I, but this is just the very beginning of an idea of a project, and within the time, it's collaborators that get into the project, and their inputs has very relevant are very relevant into the result. So in some point, at first we don't really know where we are going. We just know the starting point, but not really where we are going. And we could not understand any project of us without collaborators' inputs. Here in order, I mean, we at first we can even think about having doing a collaboration with the Black Panthers Party, and obviously their collaboration, it changed conceptually a little bit, and it adds a new sphere to to the project. So it's yeah, truly important. And also it's an experience. It's also a very rich, very interesting experience to live, to share a project and ideas with collaborators that change throughout the different projects. I don't know if I'm clear. Yeah,
of course.
So do you wanna
Well, no, only say that in Democracia you can find some strategies that we use in several projects, but you can find an aesthetics. There is no Democracia aesthetics. There is a lot of difference between one project and another. And that is because the collaboration with other people, with other communities, because we try to incorporate their vision and their own aesthetics to our projects.
And I mean, I raised in the sort of introduction there the use of agitprop, so agitation propaganda, which has its origins in sort of Soviet Russia. Information intervening in political situations to cause agitation. This comes out in your work a lot, that you are adopting aesthetics as you move through, as you grow into different situations. I mean, how important is it that the material that you're producing is creating reactions, is making people mad or making people hopeful?
I mean, the main thing in our projects would be the autocriticism. So more than criticize like the external, like an external power or the empire, it's just it's about criticizing ourselves. So it's not because we on the end we belong to this system and we are part of it. So in the first line is just an inner reflection of and in fact we are inside the things we are blaming. You know what?
So if we talk about the beginnings of this particular project, I mean, it would be great to go through and talk about all of your previous work because there's so much of it and so many impressive interventions. But I think in the show that we've got here, we've got so much material and so many different moments that we can speak about. But I wanted to start by asking why you've been drawn to producing an opera. And what I have in mind here, I've seen it sort of referenced in text about your work, is the Marshall McLuhan phrase, the medium is the message. Why have you been drawn to opera, and what is the message you think that you're putting across by producing an opera about capitalism?
Yeah, well, at the beginning of the project, it was the third act. And it was which in fact is kind of a summary of why what is art for us? I mean, what we want to do with art. And one of the things is just to use it to talk to people that wouldn't be possible to get to talk if you are not using the art channel. We might not have the possibility of talking to the powerful people if it's not through art. So in order in the beginning was this idea of, okay, let's go to let's just target this audience, and how can we do it? And we just thought that using the cultural grammar of opera would be a strategy to not get rejected and to get, for instance, in the country club. Country club was the first place we thought to do the third act, the dinner, which is a club where all U.S. presidents are associated of it. and with this kind of speech, you cannot enter this place, obviously. But if you are using opera, there is a chance, and that was the reason of use opera, and also the help, because it's been a help for us just to deal with composers and opera and this kind of big and huge and overwhelming work. It would be much easier just to use agitprop or punk.
So I actually just wanted to return to a quote that popped up when I was researching opera generally. And I wanted to just put forward a reflection on why opera is an important tool for telling stories. So this is a quote from Franco Zeffirelli. He was a director of stage and film, and he warned against taking opera too literally. He said, "Short men in armour and large ladies in chiffon singing about ancient Egypt don't make much sense at one level, but they can reveal to us the confusions of emotion and loyalty, the nature of power and pity that could not be so movingly expressed in any other way." And what I'm getting at here is that the use of opera in something like this, dealing with these issues, feels necessary. To give the melodrama to these situations is to highlight these issues and stories, but to wake people up, because you can forget this injustice that goes on in capitalism. It's so innate and so in the background. And the evil of capitalism has become banal, to sort of borrow something from Hannah Arendt there. Adding this drama, this sense of tension through the format, was that important to you?
Yeah, it was. We also do like using the opera as a elite code. Like it's just a way of getting inside the format and the language of the spectacle of the show, for example. If I can.
And if we
No, there is another thing that if we take the Democracia's work, at least the bone, the core of the work is agitprop. Then we add another levels of lecture, more than a simple sentence or a simple message. And for us, it was important in some moment to work with opera related to propaganda, as Brecht did with his famous operas.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to talk about also the origins of the libretto.
Yeah.
This is probably one of the most interesting parts of how this has come together, because the libretto was written by your father, Manuel. Mm-hmm. How did that situation come about, and was this an ambition of Manuel's to do this for a long time? And I know there's some family biography there that's perhaps interesting to hear about.
Well, my father is actually a writer, really good one, in fact. Maybe I'm not kind of the one to say it, but he's just at some point just decided to live instead of live for writing. So there is not much work about him published. And on the other hand, he's got a background, a communist background. He went to jail. I was born during Franco's regime. This comes something you can easily notice when you get a Spanish born before 70s and he's got a Russian name. You can just picture a little bit where he comes from. And so for a long time, so that to say in terms of geography that I when I was a child, I didn't have a a close relation with my father's parents, because my father was in jail, and I always grew up with my grandfathers more. And then this occasion, it was just a time just to have a different conversation with him, like not a family one, but just to change the level. And it's been really interesting. Just I'm talking really now from a personal point of view, obviously, but it's been it's got a emotional. When you work in a group or in a collaboration, there is not too many chances of having personal inputs there, because the result is normally the result of a group. So you're not talking personally of yourself. Like, there is no too much space for that. Whereas this project has give me the chance to do it, to just spend nights and nights and nights with my father talking about art and talking about a project and talking about a text. And that's from my side. For his side, it was just a gift. At some point, we just asked him, would you like to write the libretto of this project? And he just said, okay, yeah, I will do it, because I think he thought that this project will never come. It was so okay, I will do it. And he's months or 2 months ago, after, he just came up with a rough of it, a rough text, and he just said that for him, when we telling the project, he just, this extract of Hesiod, Works and Day, comes to his mind. So in a way, not in a way, but directly, the text and the project is inspired by this text, but it's more a spontaneously thing that comes to your mind suddenly, more than something that we really search for it. And that was the very beginning of Order. That was basically is taking the Hesiod Works and Day, defining this new era to come, and Order is just, okay, we are there. The era is this is proclaimed, and now it's time to enjoy the collapse.
So the project is really like an opus of Democracia. It does incorporate so many aspects of your practice that have come before, but through the opera, it weaves them together so nicely. How do you feel about the project now that you've seen it all together?
Great.
And I think what I found interesting and what I've discussed with Melissa is the positioning we're in here at Real Red, because this is a very special institution in a very interesting area. It's a working class area. It has a lot of diversity. It's got a large immigrant community. What does it mean to you to be showing a work that's got so many political messages directed for these people? What is that opportunity to actually show it to them and not a bourgeois city centre institution?
Okay, for me, this kind of institution and project as Rua Red or the station in Houston, that is a very special institution too. For me, are more relevant than traditional galleries and traditional museums, because they work with the community and the significance that they have in the neighborhood and the relationship with the people that is living there. No, for us, I think it's important. In fact, finally we could work in collaboration with the Panthers because the station in some way in Houston acts like a hub for dissent, and they have a very big net with a lot of people from the dissent movements and from the dissent thought there. And for us, when the institution have this kind of the relationship with the public, is much more rich than when we go with a museum to a rigid institution.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to add something on coming back to the Rua Red and the island thing. I mean, Rua Red has been one clear example of the collaborative process that and also of the richness of it. Like at first, second act was going to, was thought to be happen in Frankfurt. So I was just about a bunch of kids inside a limo, simultaneously, like Houston, singing while they are riding in Frankfurt. That's also the reason that why they are singing in German here in the square. But at some point, we just met Rua Red, Melissa, Joyce, and there was the chance to do a project here. And as soon as it appears that it would be possible to do it, to use the square, the shopping center, as a place to perform a project, we just saw, okay, maybe to do it here in a shopping center in an area which is working class ground, also an area which is the base for all the international companies trying to not pay their taxes as Google and so on. So we just thought this is the place to do the kids choir. Just forget about Frankfurt. This is more the place that for the action, for the real action, if I can say. That's an example that things change, and also it makes the schedule tighter.
Yeah, we felt that quite keenly. It's one of the happy accidents of the project, though, that we've ended up in Dublin, because, as you say, it's a funnel now. It's a low-tax economy within the European Union. Google have their offices here, Facebook, all of these Silicon Valley companies, which I think I've described in my notes at least as kind of covert vehicles for consumerism. They think they're about connecting people. It's connecting companies to your data. You're the product and these kind of things. So to be here is one of the nice coincidences that we've come across, I think.
Yeah.
And also, we spoke earlier about the country club in Texas, home to the presidents, and where they all like to hang out and congratulate themselves on how great they are. But we ended up doing it at the Dorchester Hotel, and I'm sure it's not escaped everyone's memory at this point that just a few months ago there was the scandal of the President's Club, which is a yearly, well, not anymore, ball in which exclusively powerful men come along in the name of charity to congratulate themselves and to harass women working there. It was another moment of serendipity in the project that maybe we didn't get the club where George Bush is hanging out, but we've got these presidents instead. Yeah. So to move on to sort of talking about the act specifically, the first act is phenomenal. It just looks incredible. you were driving a limo with some pretty inflammatory statements on it around Houston, and you're sort of you're well positioned there to annoy the two halves of society,
Yeah.
with, depending on which side of the limo they see. How was that? What kind of responses were you getting on the streets? I mean, we can see in the film that a few people are flipping the bird and looking quite angry.
Probably it's really one of the actions we have performed that provoke more reactions we ever get. That was an incredible experience just to do it. Just to be there, riding along Houston and having reactions, opposite reactions, passing simultaneously, whether they were reading Eat the Rich or Kill the Poor. So you will have people saying, wow, and people say, and yeah, fuck you all, yeah. That was also disgusting, but it's part of the thing. We also had plenty of thoughts about going to the ghetto, because at some point, like you find these limits of are we just recreating on a sort of misery pornography, or what are we doing there?
Interesting that you have this thought, though. I think a lot of artists don't have that kind of self-reflection as they produce something. They're just not having that internal dialogue.
There is also many social engaged artistic projects that we feel like they are capitalizing poverty, and so this approach we've done here, it was in a way obviously disgusting in reality doing it, but it's also against this kind of projects, so that has the level of social art, or that they probably try to be kind of an ONG or something, but finally are capitalizing that. So we wanted just to say, no, this is reality, and we are not here to help you. We're just here to, this is the system. This is what we have.
So, in that first act in the limo, we've got the character of the rich girl from Texas, who's played by Amanda, and we discussed, you let me know a very interesting fact about this, is that Amanda is essentially playing herself to an extent, because you mentioned that she was adopted by a wealthy oil family in Texas. Her bringing this personal experience to the role, it seems that she's really relishing the chance to play the evil side, maybe. What do you think this brought to the project, the fact that she was so connected to that character? She had such realism to it.
Well, we don't know nothing about that till the day that we went to film with her. In some way, he was involved in the project because of that, because for her was an opportunity to think about her roots, her family, and her work, because he said, if I can collaborate with you, if I can sign opera, it's because they owe money. And for her, it was an opportunity of self-criticizing too.
So, another interesting factor here, I'll probably have to read this off my notes actually, it's quite a long point. Another interesting factor here is the focus on Houston. So this was once the epicenter of the USA's oil wealth. It's the home of the most successful political dynasty in the Bushes. And we find ourselves in a really different situation now. The oil is running out, and their neoliberal vision is demonstrably failing with the rise of right-wing populism. Are we seeing in Amanda the kind of new money of the oil boom? You know, the people who strike black gold in their backyard in Texas. Are we seeing them become old money? Are we seeing them become the ruling class from being completely cemented there by generations of private education and them having a deeply ingrained sense of privilege and superiority? Are we seeing that group sort of cement?
Yeah, I mean, we're just seeing this new generation that it's fully aware that energy is going to finish and they are going to leave it, and is confident of, okay, let's exploit as we can, and let's end and let's enjoy it. And that's her character, and that's the point. It's just new generation that doesn't care about future, about nothing, but just their moment. Just.
So if we move on now to Jeremiah, which is another incredible scene, a really powerful moment in the opera. There's a lot to unpick here that's going on. I think a good place to start here, though, is why was it important for you? Because this is one of the parts that has stayed the same. You always wanted this group of people. You always wanted to make this very specific statement, or a lot of statements. Mm-hmm. Why was it important to empower this group in the narrative? Why are they such a locus of the project for you?
Well, go.
This thing, we are not empowering the new Black Panther Party. They empower themselves, as you can see.
Yeah.
No, just. I mean, for us, it's something really important when activists just join the project, and also we are also talking about Black Panthers, which probably from our point of view is the amongst the only social activism which resists from May 68. Most of them has been included into the system, and they keep on their fight. So it's just we're very thankful. Just and it's also emotionally very powerful just to feel that. I mean, just to see your text, how they are included into their activity. That's also been probably the most heart touching for my father, for example, when he just was yesterday here showing the project. The fact of seeing some of his text in a banner with a Black Panther wearing it, he said, "Wow, thanks Democracia, thanks a lot for this moment." I've never thought in my life that I could see have this chance of a Black Panther, enjoy the clubs there. So, and that's also, that's also very touching for us, but for many of the collaborators, it applies for the designer. So in fact, there is, how to say that, well, it's a proof, it tests that the project it works when, for example, collectivities or activists like Black Panthers, they just join the thing. So for us, it's kind of, okay, we're in the good way, we're not wrong. It validates in a way.
I thought you said something interesting in your interview with Becky in the exhibition newspaper, and it was part of your reasoning for wanting to work with these people, is that it was kind of a quote from Marx, the struggle against oppression must be led by those most oppressed. And I think one thing that we can really applaud in this is that in this conversation about capitalism, a really key part of it seems to be, that's often missed, is that violence against these marginalized groups is still part of that capitalist system. It's still part of the way that system's enforced. Perhaps I'm just making a point there, but why is it important for you to talk, I mean, because obviously what they were chanting was the name of black people who've died in police custody, who've been shot by police on the streets. Why is it important for you to talk about the racial politics of America when you're having that discussion about capitalism?
Well, as you said, racism is very related to capitalism. But we must to say that when we start to thinking in the project in Houston, we want to do an open carry demonstration because the law there allows to the people to handling guns in the street. It's not usual here in Europe. And for us, you always, when you think about arms and guns, here in Europe, you are always thinking in a kind of fascism or something related to right-wing groups. We want to twist that perception, to talk about self-defense, and that's the thought behind the organization of the open carry. Then, when we start talking with the station, they offer us to contact the Panthers. And for us, it was really great. At the beginning, we didn't have a clear idea to talk about racism, of police brutality. We want to talk about self-defense. Because, for example, in Spain, because our history of political violence, right now you can't think about violence as a tool for transformation or liberation. And we want to put this issue on the table. Finally, when the new Black Panther Party wants to collaborate with us, was perfect, because suddenly they are attaching to the project all their background, the fight against police brutality, the fights against racism, and so on.
So we'll step forward then. I think it's just finished now, Act 2, Consumentencore, which was filmed here in Taller. What you mentioned earlier, and what's quite interesting about this, is that the act was initially conceived as a conversation between these two limos. What's going on in this conversation? Because the phrase that stands out to me from Amanda is, kill the poor, let them lick their wounds, they are no longer necessary, now there are machines that will do it all for you. But the choir describe themselves as machines of desire. Is that through consumerism? Are we like finding a way to make us poor people useful?
Yeah. Yeah, cannot explain it better.
But yeah, I think there's a really interesting dichotomy there, and it's a little bit removed now with the protest in the middle. It's sort of, there's like that jarring moment and a separation, but the conversation's still very present there. So the shooting in Taller was probably one of the most challenging parts, I think. We had a very large crew of people, very little time to actually achieve what we needed to. One of the most interesting parts of the day, though, was our use of the screen in there, and the messages are quite strong, and they became unhappy that we were critiquing consumerism right in front of them. It was quite experience, no? That for them, they were very defensive about it, but for the customers, it was like seeing a normal advert. They just sort of wandered past it.
And it was also, the thing that surprised me when doing the performance was, in fact, how you can put whatever message you can think of in a big screen in a shopping center, and that is not really noticed by. It's just many people who will notice it, and the impact was really big. I mean, it was, if you have the chance to go there, it's just in front of the shopping center by. And you can imagine there consumer that you can, and people just keep consuming and not that. This contrast was difficult to explain it in the edit, and it was just very strong. How we even don't. It's not possible to communicate right now with. Such a massive communication passing around that there is not dialogue possible. There were only just minorities, people of not having anything to do there or whatever. Even the shopping center, it took time for the shopping center just to read the message, and that was powerful. The lack of reactions was powerful in second act.
So speaking more about the sort of general themes of the second act, so for the film that will be screened alongside the exhibition, we've chosen John Carpenter's They Live, which of course is the film in which he finds a magical pair of sunglasses that suddenly reveal all of the messaging of consumerism, all the billboards and magazines around him telling him to obey and consume and buy and reproduce. There's a lot. It feels like we have a lot of parallels there with the screen. That it's like we've made the consumerism naked, and everyone can see the emperor's got no clothes. But it feels like we're really exploring, as Zizek would say, the trash can of ideology when he's talking about They Live. How important is it for you to talk about the use of consumerism as an ideological cover for the ills of capitalism? Because when you're concerned with buying stuff that you don't need, you're not thinking about changing the world. So why is it so important to talk about consumerism in this context, and how do you feel it operates in capitalism rather than just making money, perhaps?
Yeah, but I mean, it's just what it makes the system. It's the energy. I mean, the consume is what it fits this system. So it's just. I was also, there is a part in the libretto which is where I like it a lot, and quite clear that it's not only about consume everything, but also anti-consumerism. I mean, it's just so in fact, if we can at least try to highlight that and try to stop it, that would be good. I mean, I think that's the point, to have to attack consume.
Mm-hmm. So we'll move forward on to Act 3, the dinner at the Dorchester. I appreciate we're probably running quite long on time. But one thing that we discussed recently is that when audiences have seen Act 3, no one really believes that this is a real intervention. Everyone thinks it's all actors in the room. But I feel like it's an important point to get across, that in all of these situations that people are really being confronted in reality, as we've said here and said here. How important is it for you that the artwork has this relationship to the real, to reality? That it's not just a photograph on the wall, that it happened and you got those responses?
I mean, for us, it's the thing that is, it has to be real. It's about doing action that has to be real, not a fictionary stuff. It would be much more easy just to do a film, call actors and do it, but that's not the point. I mean, and then it is true, as you said, that then there is always the problem to work out. I mean, how are we going to explain and let clear that this is happening for real? And also it gets more difficult because due to our aesthetics, due to our way of doing it. If we just maybe insist on a documentary sort of kind of movie, or just a register of the action, trying to be more, but not using the tools of probably movies or aesthetics. So there is also this thing, and I think we failed because probably most of the people watching they might think that this is a fictional movie. So we maybe failed this one there.
I wouldn't go that far.
I think that here there is something related to the quality of the image.
Yeah.
Right now, the high quality image, we feel that this kind of image are fiction, are the image of movies. On the other hand, when we have blurred image, when we have pixels, we associate this kind of image to the truth, to the reality, because right now, when you are filming a demonstration, or when you are in a party with friends, you take your phone and you are filming and you send it, and this kind of lower quality image are more related to us to the real world than the high quality image. And I think that probably some people feel that this is not real, and they are all of them actors because of that.
Well, I think at the very least you'll get this nice moment when people do read into what's gone on here, or they speak to, people involved in the project or people presenting the project, that this really did happen. So I like to be in the shoes of someone discovering that these were real things one day.
Well, there was I just wanted to just an anecdotic thing of the process. But just a week ago, we were still working on this, specifically on Houston sound, and there was just a week ago, there was a huge meeting during 2 days with the editor, the sound, just talking about whether we are gonna. We have two versions of the first act. They were the same editing, but just sound it changed. On the one, we had kind of the opera sounding, and Amanda, nice voice, the record, to say it. On the other hand, we had a sound mix very realistic, so that if you were outside the limo, you would hear the people, the streets, but not really the singing. And if you are inside the limo, and then we had the opportunity of, okay, if we go with this master, it's clear that this action is being doing in Houston, no doubts. Using the other, it implies that maybe this is a kind of playback or video clip or whatever, but it's not real. After 2 nights, we decided, and after just mixing the 2 versions of it, we just decided all together just to go for the fiction, for the good sound. Because the message, and when you just view it, the message for the audience, when you view it, it was much more powerful, having the opportunity to hear the music, to see the image, and to really hear Amanda singing, rather than the reality of the singing through a megaphone or with the cars and things. So at this point, we had to choose the project more than the reality, even though everything was for real.
Well, we must to say that for us, this kind of performance have 2 times. The time that is the thing is happening, and then the processing, the how to do the document.
So if we get into the kind of content of Act 3, I've got in my notes here to attack the patron and to attack the guests, which is kind of what goes on here. You've got these people who are, complicit, as we all are in capitalism, but maybe perhaps more so, in this very lavish setting. So Hito Stöll, in her book, The Wretched of the Screen, argued for a dramatic expansion of institutional critique, for it to be braver in confronting the forces at work behind institutions in the arts. She particularly advocates for the lights to be turned on the money behind art. Was this part of your intentions here, knowing that you'd be challenging one of your most ardent and powerful supporters? Did you ever fear the outcome of doing this? Did you ever think, no?
Yeah, we're going to taste it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I'd like to say it was very brave. And that moment when Charles is singing and then when Lisa's singing was incredibly powerful. But if we can talk about Lisa a little bit,
I think it was more brave for their part than from our, because the patron knows knew what is going to happen, and even knowing it, he just set the dinner. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the most relevant thing, because at some point we're just doing. So rather there, I think it's not too many people will set the dinner for doing this and put his friends or relations there in the table and
really put them in the firing line. So to look at Lisa's character, Charles definitely says some uncomfortable words for the guests, and he reveals the kind of true meaning of those kind of celebrations when you pat yourself on the back after a good year. But Lisa's really the protagonist of the film in many ways. She's the ultimate character. I said in the foreword text that she's the critical mass of oppression that goes on. She's poor, she's of colour, and she's a woman. And what's important to us as the audience? What are we getting from her narrative, do you think? Is her message?
Well, Lisa is the truth. She's got the truth. So just listen to her, and she's got the truth. All the rest are wrong.
It's a really powerful message that she brings at the end. Very threatening, even. And it's just one of the most fantastic parts of the opera. I just get chills when I see her singing like that. And remembering the looks on people's faces as they experienced her powerful singing and the powerful message that you gave her.
Yeah, for the performance at the dinner for Lisa was really, even though he's got a long career and of performing, for her it was a really intense moment. At some point, she even couldn't keep singing. So it was also really intense, not only for the guest being attacked, but also for the singer just confronting. Because we also had to create a situation with no escape. It was just a table, and we were just singing on the back of everyone.
I think we'll wrap it up there. So I think in the beginning, when I've thanked everyone, I've neglected to thank you guys. I do have to say thank you. It's been an incredible project, incredible journey, and you guys have worked so hard to bring it to us today. It's been fantastic, and congratulations. I think it's just absolutely amazing. I think you should be very proud of it. But thank you all for coming and listening. I hope everyone's still awake and happy. But thanks again to everyone for coming, and to Melissa and the team at River Red for hosting us.